Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new TEAM therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda. And hello, Mary and Elizabeth.
Good afternoon. Hi, David. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, and welcome everyone to episode 229. We have with us in our studio Mary Stockton and her daughter Elizabeth Stockton Perkins. And Mary is a level 3 TEAM certified psychologist from Wooster, Ohio. She and her daughter Elizabeth are going to talk about how Mary's expertise in TEAM therapy, especially the 5 secrets, has influenced her parenting, and how the 5 secrets training that the two of them have provided to their community has impacted, the world. Elizabeth is 19 years old, and she is a rising sophomore at Vassar College in New York. So welcome.
Thanks. Thank you. We're so glad to be with you.
Cool. And I'm going to read a podcast endorsement from Andres. And he wrote you, "Hello, David. I listened again to podcast 213, comparing and contrasting your books, Feeling Good and Feeling Great, in which you talked about Ludwig Wittgenstein. I really liked that podcast, and the way your emotions about Wittgenstein showed in that episode really made me pay extra attention. I'll read his investigation since it's recommended by you and also by Alan Watts, 2 people I really admire. For this year, I wish that our ego ends up out of business and that we can see life as what I suspect it is, a miracle, although I can't prove that yet. Happy New Year to you and to your loved ones. Cheers, Andres."
And thank you, Andre. I loved your email because it showed tremendous insight and understanding, and that's pretty rare when you're talking about Buddhism or Wittgenstein and his philosophy. So that just made me feel great when I read your email, and I sent it right over to Rhonda and said, "We've got to read this one on the air."
Cool. So Mary, tell us a little bit about you and how you got to be a TEAM therapist, and then how your work as a TEAM therapist has impacted your parenting.
Well, I first met David. David wouldn't remember this, but I was an audience member in a workshop he gave in 2002. I think it was titled, "It's All Your Fault." And unfortunately, to my detriment, I was a slow learner. I didn't start to really apply David's amazing model until 2017, when I found
that was
podcast.
a 2-day workshop, was it?
I think your memory for it is better than mine, but that is my...
And were you sitting in like the 3rd row about the 4th from the edge? Over on the right.
That's great. I wish I'd started to really subscribe to the TEAM philosophy at that time, but once I really got hooked on it, there was no turning back. Rhonda was one of my first trainers in one of Jill Levitt's courses, and I've since learned from Thai-An Truong and Matt May and Daniel Mintie. So fortunate to have had incredible teachers, and I rely very heavily on your methods in my work as a psychologist. And like so many TEAM therapists, I would say that the 5 secrets framework has changed my life, not just professionally, but personally as well. Can't imagine practicing without it. And at the same time, it's been a wonderful gift in my relationship with my daughter. We are definitely far from perfect in our use of the tools and techniques, and it's a work in progress. It always will be. But one amazing thing about TEAM and your 5 secrets is that even with our imperfection and all the times we mess up, the methods are so powerful that they really are life-changing.
Fantastic to hear that.
Elizabeth, tell us what your experience of your mother using team methods and the 5 secrets with you.
Sure. I think Mom first introduced me to the 5 secrets, especially in my last 2 years of high school, when I was having to take more initiative with communicating with teachers and just dealing with some complicated things with friendships and moving into adulthood, and even with babysitting was one of the main times when we really started working on some of the 5 secrets. And since then, I've just kept coming back to Mom saying, I want to learn more, or I would love your help with this. And so she's been really helpful in dealing with a variety of situations. So I second that the 5 secrets and all the feeling good strategies have been really life-changing for me.
How about some examples of these cool things you're both describing?
Well, I think there are a number of ways it's helped me as a parent. I mean, one way is it really improves the quality of our interactions. Mm-hmm. It's especially fun that we're both on board. Sometimes one of us will make a communication error and we try to rectify the situation by using the 5 secrets or some affirmation. Elizabeth's brother sometimes will say nice rebound stroking when he enters the room and hears us, trying to use the tools. Empathy and assertiveness and respect can really repair a lot and bring people together. Yeah. I think it helps me as a parent to improve my role in communicating with Elizabeth to avoid some of the communication errors that I'm most prone to making. Mm-hmm. I would love to think that I'm right as a parent and am prone to helping and advising instead of listening. That's a big one. Problem solving and trying to solve problems at the expense of understanding her feelings or the situation. So TEAM gives us an alternative to that.
Give us an example of what you're talking about, because I'm a huge supporter of what you just said, how almost everybody listening to the podcast doesn't get it. They go to problem solving when they should be helping, or when they should be listening and hearing. But people, I say that, I give examples of it, and people still seem addicted to problem solving. You remember what the Buddha said 2,500 years ago?
I need you to remind me of what the Buddha said.
He said, and you can find this in his Tibetan Book of the Dead, that problem solving is worse than nuclear attack.
Wow. Well, that's unfortunate for me because I've been socialized to be a helper.
Right, all of us.
I was raised to be a helper, and then even worse, trained to be a helper.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly working on kind of unlearning that.
Yeah.
It's so tempting to help or advise. And then when the kids are little, I think when Elizabeth was 2, I probably was the expert on some things. She did need my help in problem solving. And now she's almost 20 and more of an independent mind. So, your acronym of avoiding preaching, I think that's part of your work, David.
Yeah.
Trying to avoid persuading and rescuing, educating, advising, coaching, and helping. Those are so tempting when you're parenting a teen or an emerging adult.
I know that one specific example of this was last summer when I basically came to Mom and expressed a lot of feelings I had about intrusive thoughts about food and body image. I was really struggling with that. And I think my tendency is to bottle up a lot of those negative emotions. And so it was probably kind of a surprise to her that I was feeling all these things. And before we started really diving into do agenda setting and all these things, the semantic technique, externalization of voices, Mom spent a lot of time just offering empathy and using inquiry with me, just so that I think she could understand how I was feeling. And also I needed to also clarify for myself how I was feeling. And looking back, I really appreciate that she didn't just jump right in with giving advice, because I think that would have definitely reduced our feelings of closeness and also wouldn't have helped me change some of my thinking.
I love what you're both saying. Now, you don't have to follow my suggestion here, but I'm wondering if you can give us an example of that. What kind of things were you saying to Mom that you'd be kind of been bottling up and hiding your feelings? And then what kind of responses did she make which were helpful to you? The reason I'd love to have a specific example if possible, although you don't have to talk about the shoplifting. Rhonda made me promise not to bring that up, so I won't. But,
good. Thank you.
but because the specific example might illuminate it for our listeners, because a lot of them are parents or grandparents or sons or daughters, and they hear your words, but they don't see it yet. What's the difference between throwing help and advice at somebody and just listening and providing warmth and support and paraphrasing the words, paraphrasing the feelings, asking for more information, seeing truth in what the person is saying, and not helping.
I think one of the specific problems I was having was that I was falling into the trap of the tyranny of the shoulds. And so I just had a lot of habits that were related to all these should statements, like, Elizabeth, you should be bird boned. You should be super skinny, like size 0. And
so you're saying I should be.
I should. Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking.
I should be super skinny. Yeah.
And so instead of jumping right in to do all the preaching and helping, Mom definitely was using a lot of clarifying questions to help me unpack that and express myself more.
Now, I bet we've got tons of listeners who can identify with that exact thing. Could we do a brief role play with Mom, and you could maybe make that statement, and Mom can show her, strut her stuff, so to speak?
Yeah. Mom, I have been thinking a lot that I should be bird boned, or there's something wrong with my body, that I should be a size 2, even though I know that I'm not at an unhealthy weight, but I still am feeling kind of trapped by all these thoughts.
Oh, Elizabeth, it's so wonderful you're being open with me and sharing what's going on. You're getting these intrusive thoughts that leave you feeling trapped and kind of getting this idea that you need to be, you're saying bird boned, or maybe thinking you need to be a certain size, a size 2. And I feel concerned about that. I just love you so much. And just feel sad if you're feeling trapped. I want to know more about that. Can we talk more about it? I want to know what it's like for you.
Before we go on, what grade do you give yourself on that?
Well, maybe I'll give myself a B or a B plus.
Okay. What grade did you give it, Elizabeth?
Oh, I mean, at the time I gave it an A because I was just so excited that I was receiving all this empathy. I felt like I was really heard.
Yeah, I thought it was an A myself. What would you think, Rhonda?
I absolutely thought it was an A. I think Mary's being hard on herself.
Yeah. Now, why was that response helpful to you? Because she didn't help you.
Yeah, I think Mom was really the first person who I really opened up to about all these feelings. And so I think even though I knew, of course, my family wants to help me and is really loving, I think I felt so much relief that I was able to just share all of my feelings with someone, just kind of unloading some of the burden. And so it was really nice that I didn't feel like I had to immediately go into defense mode and try to protect myself from a lot of unsolicited advice. But instead, I just felt like I had someone who would sit with me in these feelings as I figured out where I wanted to go from there.
I love what you're saying. When we do personal work in our Tuesday group, which we're going to be doing tonight, we did last Tuesday also. We have this when we do personal work, it's maybe 2.5 hours, and we like we'll have 4 patients tonight in our weekly training group. Last week, I think we had 5. We might have 5 tonight. Then we break into small rooms and we do personal work. And one of the things that's most helpful to people, you see, the people who come to our group, some of them are Stanford students, graduate students, psychiatric residents, sometimes faculty, doctoral, postdoctoral students, as well as community therapists. And most of them struggle with insecurity, that they're not good enough. You know, you say you're not thin enough to be good enough, but we all have our different version of that. And they're usually hiding these feelings. So that's the second thing. First, they think they're not good enough, and then secondly, they think others would judge them, so they have to hide these feelings shamefully, and they're carrying this burden. And then those who are at Stanford, there is a tendency in a medical center or a graduate school to be competitive and to try to impress people, and to fear people's judgments. And my wife was a PhD student at Penn, and she said they would often have someone come in and give a talk from a different university, and often the person was trying to impress the people at Penn in the Department of Psychology, hoping maybe to get a job there or something, because it was one of the top programs in the country. And then they would just ruthlessly rip the person's research to shreds often, really in a kind of mean-spirited way, which I understand totally, because that's kind of what critical academic thinking is, to make people aware that, you know, you're kind of a bullshitter and you don't really know what you're talking about, and your research is pretty flawed. But it's still, you know, that threat of humiliation in front of other people when they see how screwed up you are. And what happens in our Tuesday group is when people open up, people just shower them with so much love and warmth and appreciation, and it is genuine, and the tears flow. And they're just feel tears of joy and gratitude. My gosh, I can be human here without being killed. My camera's at such a funny angle. I'm down almost like I'm under the table or something. I'll see if I can correct this.
No, we can.
There. I'm up a little higher now, but it's really a neat thing to be able to be open, and I learned that, you know, and I've mentioned this on podcasts with my daughter too, who, you know, sometimes gets in a mood like we all do, and, you know, gets upset about this or that or the other thing. And I've just learned to do like what you folks do, to just say, I love you so much, and it sounds like you're hurting a whole lot, and it isn't right what's happening, and, you know, tell me about that. I just want to hear. I just want to listen, and to be disciplined, and to refuse to help. You know, it sounds so awful that I finally learned to refuse to help my daughter. But it's really and then it's so helpful to her and so meaningful and brings us so close together. It's kind of one of the quieter miracles of life, and most people still don't get it. And people are just ruthless in their insistence on throwing help at people. And I make that mistake myself. I made it last week in the Tuesday group a little bit. I kind of redeemed myself to a certain extent, but it's such a easy error to make. And when you help people, you're kind of giving them the message that they're all broken and defective. Yeah. Well, I'll help you, dear, with all those distorted thoughts.
But Elizabeth, also, your mom didn't, she wasn't judgmental. She wasn't judging you or expressing shock. Like, what do you think you would have, how do you think you would have responded, or what would you have thought if, when you said, I should be bird boned and a size 2 and I'm trapped by all these thoughts? I can imagine a mother clearly saying, what are you talking about? You're already skinny. You're not, a size 2? That's ridiculous. Don't worry about that. You're fine just the way you are.
Yeah. I think I was already feeling a lot of shame that was just completely self-imposed. And so I think if mom would have reacted in that way, I think I would have definitely felt like I was letting her down. And so that might have just reinforced my instinct to not share how I was feeling. So just the fact that she was really open was really helpful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What a gift that is. Now, I have a stupid question for you that isn't exactly on topic. And I'm very opinionated. And as Rhonda realizes, all my opinions are generally correct. Except for 50% of them are just bullshit. You know, they all seem good to me. So you have to be a critical thinker when I say things. But, you know, where did you get this idea that you should be so thin? You know, there's all these theories about it and claims that people make.
Sure. I think one thing that was at the root of the feelings was just my desire to be healthy. And I think I really had this confabulated sense that if I was above a certain size or if my body didn't look a certain way that I couldn't be healthy, instead of thinking about there are kind of many different ways to be healthy and a certain look doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy. You know, you can be bird boned and be really unhealthy. So I think maybe that kind of just that message from the media was probably what I had been internalizing.
But I guess then the question that I would still have is, you know, why did that message get to you so strongly? The kind of a perfectionistic thing, an all or nothing thing, and something that you took very, very seriously. And you know, I've seen that in people too who are much more rigid about dietary and health kinds of things. And there can be great benefit in that too, because it's hard to have a healthy diet. If you are a little rigid about it, it's maybe easier. But mom's got an answer to this.
Well, kind of to just add to that, I kind of wonder if the question of why was important for you in turning this around, Elizabeth, if gaining insight about how this came about was what you needed, or if there was something else that never really helped you to overcome that struggle.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the problems, not the problems, but one of the things that I was really struggling with internally were these two competing should statements of I should be bird boned, but then also I'm a feminist. I shouldn't let all these messaging from the media affect me this way. And so I shouldn't want to look a certain way. And so these two ideas were just butting heads. And I was like, I don't know how to make them at peace with each other and just work it all out. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that was definitely something that eventually when mom moved on to actually helping me, and when I said I was ready to change, that was really important to unpack.
Yeah, that's cool. So there was a part of you saying I should be bird boned. That people say that to me all the time. Like, I just love you, Dr. Burns, because you're so majestically bird boned. I hear that several times a day, and it gives me a great sense of pride and self.
What bird are you, David? What bird would that be?
An eagle.
One of those prehistoric, big plump ones. But that you gave yourself that message, and then the contradictory message, I should be a feminist and I shouldn't be buying into these stereotypes of how women should be, and that was like war between those two worlds inside of yourself. How long was that war going on?
Oh, many, many months. I would say, I mean, when I first came to mom about this, I just finished my first year of college, but I had definitely been having these feelings and thoughts since high school. So really took me a while to open up. And that's why I was really glad that all the things mom was doing were just making me feel glad I was sharing instead of.
You must be so proud of your mom, and you love her so much.
Yes, I am. I do love her very much.
It's neat to see the sparkle in your eyes and the smile in your face, and both of you. It's beautiful to see a wonderful mother-daughter relationship. As therapists, we're sometimes hear about really, people who've had horrible experiences, have been working with a young man. Well, he's not young anymore, but who had horrific abuse for the first 20 years of his life. Just the most awful things you can imagine. Jill Levitt was on our podcast earlier today, and she teaches with us at Stanford, and she's a really beautiful person and a genius teacher, and just very kind. But she lost her dad recently, and she was on our small group last week and read a statement about him, and she was just sobbing. She just loved him so much. She talked about his strengths and his weaknesses, but she said she was so lucky to have a father who was so loving, and as a grandfather who has been so loving to her kids. And she said she's treating a young woman who's having had a really horrible situation with her father growing up, and Jill said she was thinking, I'm actually feel way more fortunate than her, even though my father died. Her father's still alive, but I just feel like I'm so much luckier. And just neat to see the beautiful thing between the two of you. I don't know if this is what we're supposed to be talking about, Jill, but it's, I heard Rhonda. Yeah.
Well, let's keep going. We could either keep going about how Elizabeth, you and how you, Mary, worked through this issue of your body image, or if you want, we could talk about one of the other multiple examples that you gave. But it might be kind of fun to keep going with this, if you don't mind, Elizabeth.
Sure.
So it sounds like after your mom gave you great empathy, she asked you if you wanted to do work. And what's it like having mom as a therapist?
It was really interesting. I mean, obviously, Mom and I had talked about some of these things before and talked about especially communicating with other people in the 5 secrets, but we had never really made a plan about being very intentional about, okay, we're going to meet and start working on this as if I was her patient. So that was this whole new thing. Gave me even more appreciation for the work that she does with her patients and really seeing her shine. But yeah, then I think the first thing was working on agenda setting. Am I right about that, Mom?
Yeah.
Right? It was agenda setting was first. Yeah.
You don't need to check with me, honey. You know what you're talking about.
Hey, you're with PhD. I just got to check in. So
I got it out of a cereal box. Don't forget.
So we worked on an agenda setting, doing a lot of work to just clarify my goals and what I actually wanted to change. Even when I said I wanted to change, Mom was still really respectful about checking in to make sure that she wasn't just the one diagnosing the problems that I needed to fix, but that we were going to only really work on the things that I wanted to change. We talked about the magic button. Like if I could push a magic button and have all the shame and negative feelings go away, would I? And then I think one of my favorite things that we worked on was the idea of positive reframing my symptoms, which is something we still reference every week about different things. But I just loved thinking about what all these negative emotions and thoughts said about me that actually might be positive. That made me feel a lot better, for sure.
Elizabeth, what were some of your negative thoughts?
The first one we tackled was the should statement of I should be bird boned. And then the one that was conflicting, which is like, I shouldn't want to fit this thin aesthetic or, conform to what diet culture says. Right. Because I'm a strong, high achieving, smart person. And those were the two that we really dove into and used all the tools on.
Well, how did you use them on I should be bird boned, and I should be more of a feminist?
So we did some role playing, being the voice of change and talking back. So arguing for reasons to change, and then also talking about maybe the reasons that I might not want to change.
Yeah.
which
cool.
was, that was something I had never done with mom before. And I really liked that. And we did truth-based techniques, like examine the evidence and the survey technique. So I actually asked my brother, Henry, if when he is, I guess, like picking a potential partner, like, would he only want to date a girl who is bird-boned? Basically, because I trust his opinion and I really respect him. So we were trying to use this, like just to survey him, or like, Henry, would you like me more if I was bird-boned? That took some humility and was definitely like shame attacking, just surveying his opinion.
And also, but Elizabeth, before you go further, you said that what you really liked was the positive reframing.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we could go back to that and tell us what those things said about you that were beautiful and awesome, and what your values, or maybe.
Yeah. And then come back to this, because I'm dying to find out what your brother said. So
okay.
I know. We'll keep you dangling.
Yeah, that's okay. So the positive reframe, I think just my desire to be healthy, which I think was at the root of this desire to be skinny, that said that I did really care about my health. I think in high school and in college, I've worked hard to make exercise and things like that part of my routine. So it makes sense that it is good that I do have a desire to be healthy, even if it's kind of manifesting itself in these thoughts that are kind of toxic. Also, I think my feelings of shame about this, and especially about the feeling that I was like letting myself down or not living up to my ideals of like this strong, independent woman, I think that said that I really value like my self-worth, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but
sure it does.
Yeah. I really want to respect myself, and I feel like I'm letting myself down with all this negative self-talk that's really degrading and kind of mean to my body.
Mm-hmm. Also shows high standards.
Yeah, that's true.
And humility. You're criticizing yourself for not being good enough.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, "Oh, I'm so great because I'm almost a size 2." Right?
Yeah.
What else does it show about you that's beautiful and awesome?
It definitely says something about my sense of self-awareness. I think just being able to verbalize my thoughts and feelings more was really important. And it also spoke to my desire to improve, because I think one of my best qualities is just always wanting to learn and become a better person in different aspects of my life, whether that's academic or in my relationships or just, growing. So
is that real?
I think, again, yeah.
Is that a good thing?
I think so.
Is that important?
Yes.
Is that powerful?
Yes.
Yeah, all of that. Also, another neat thing it shows about you is your desire for a loving relationship.
Yeah, that's very true.
Is that true?
Yes.
Is that powerful?
Uh-huh.
Is that important?
It sure is.
Yeah. What else did this system show about you that's awesome, or other benefits to you?
Oh, boy. Well, I think so the should statement relating to like, I should be better than this. One thing that Mom and I talked about was that part of the reason I felt so much shame about expressing my self-loathing about my body was that there are a lot of younger girls in my life who I really love, and I would never want them to.
That's kind of emotional. Yeah, you love those ladies. I remember that.
This is beautiful. Yeah, let those tears come.
So much. We talked about Maddie and Lydia, who we just adore. Yeah, that love runs so deep. Mm-hmm.
Who are Maddie and Livia or Lydia?
Maddie and Lydia are younger friends who we talked about that day in June. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So that really just, it also shows how much you care about other women and being a good role model to younger women.
Definitely. I would never want someone else to feel the way that I felt.
Right.
That was a big one, and it does show something so beautiful about you, what a good mentor you are and how loving you are toward your younger friends who look up to you so much.
Yep.
Wow. You set a pretty high bar, my dear.
Thank you.
For the rest of us. That's so cool to discover all those great things about you.
Yeah.
Now I have a question.
Sure.
What did your brother say?
Oh, he was very confused. I think he walked into Mom's office not knowing that we were working on this, and I just threw the question at him of, Henry, is one of your criteria in picking a girlfriend that they're bird boned? And he was like, Elizabeth, that's so stupid. No, of course not.
Yeah.
And then of course he said, like, I would not love you more if you were a size 2. So that was very reassuring. I mean, I expected no less from him, but
what's his name?
Henry.
Henry. And then how old is he?
He is 17.
So he's a younger brother.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. I'll pass it back to Rhonda or to Mom.
I appreciated what you said, David, about being disciplined and not helping.
Yeah.
It is very difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult every day of my life to not help and coach and persuade, and continues. And I think you're absolutely right that it's a discipline, and especially when we really care and love the person we're with, whether it's a daughter or a friend or a patient who we've grown to be really fond of.
Yeah.
It's so, when the person we care about is upset, it stirs up feelings in us. It's hard to sit with those feelings of upset and irrational thought.
When you forget and throw help at somebody, do you feel ashamed, or is it upset? Or maybe you don't do it anymore, but I still make that mistake sometimes. Then I kind of get mad at myself.
I do it every day, but I'm just trying to kind of get back on the train again.
Yeah.
Team train.
Well, if I remind myself, then it's easy, but I get carried away and lose discipline sometimes. And often I get away with it and it works just great, but often it does not work.
Sometimes feel invited to help. Sometimes if somebody knows you're in mental health, or just a friend might come to me for advice, and I have to constantly remind myself not to do too much helping and presume that I know the answer to someone else's problem. Yeah.
Now, Rhonda said you two have done some workshops or something like that. I'm not sure that I got that right.
We did. We did a workshop in our community for parents and teens, and shared secrets of effective communication, and shared some of the things we love about your interpersonal model.
It was really fun.
Oh, cool. When our kids were young, let's see, I would say they're separated by 5 years. So our son must have been, I don't know, 7, and our daughter 12, or maybe he was 9 and she was 14. This woman in Harrisburg said, would you and your family come and do an evening at our high school for, the families and kids on feeling good together, which was, the 5 secrets of effective communication. So we went ahead and did it. It was a little intimidating because I didn't have any expertise at all in this area. I with the 5 secrets, but I didn't know anything about high school students or parents or anything like that. But so we drove up there without a whole agenda on what we were going to do, and got up on the stage, and then the kids talked, and we talked about different issues that had come up in our family and how we'd address them. But people really seemed to appreciate it. And I think my daughter was just starting to blossom a little bit. And so afterwards, I mean, she had a line of about 20 boys wanting to talk to her. And they thought we were like celebrities or something like that. And it was just interesting how just, tips, I think we taught them a little about, the disarming technique and some of the 5 secrets and how just some simple stuff seemed so helpful to people and how so few people in modern civilization have any concept at all of the 5 secrets of effective communication. Should we tell our listeners what they are?
Would love to talk about that. And I'd say that the people we've shared your model with have also given similar feedback. I know the teens in our little group said they loved that the parents were also showing respect and listening carefully for thoughts and feelings, that it wasn't the parent kind of in a superior position over the teenager.
Yeah.
So that was part of talking about, our efforts to ask gentle, probing questions and to approach our kids with a stance of interest to get more information. And
in our case, it almost worked a little bit too well. Mm-hmm. Because I can remember the day my daughter came to my wife and me and said, listen, there's something I want to talk to you about. Do you think I should have sex with my boyfriend? And if so, should I do it here in this house or in his house? And I was like, why do we teach them to be so open?
Was she using inquiry with you? And how did you respond to that?
I don't remember. I just remember it was very hard to figure out what to say.
That sounds very difficult. Well, I've also used the 5 secrets with one of my, both of my kids. I've taught the 5 secrets and used it with them. And I have a story that I tell when I'm teaching the 5 secrets. And Mary, you said the first step is disarming, where you're finding some truth in what they're saying and speaking to them with respect, and thought empathy, where we're repeating back what they've said, feeling empathy, where we acknowledge what they might be feeling, and then inquiry, when we're asking gentle, probing questions to get more information, and so that they feel free to speak as much as they want. And then we share our feelings too in the I feel statement. And,
right.
And then stroking with words of affection or respect, either at the end or interwoven throughout the conversation. And when my son graduated from college, he moved back home briefly before he got a job. And he was sharing with me that he had this medical condition, and he was being open and sharing and and he didn't know what to do. And then I think later that evening or the next day, I went to a party, and a friend of mine is a doctor who has known my son since he was probably 3 or 4. And I explained to him what Gabriel was going through. And he gave me medical advice. Oh, do this, blah, blah, blah. Have him go get this, at the store. And I came home feeling so proud of myself. Like I was doing such a great job taking care of him. And I was saving him from going to a doctor's appointment and saving him time. And I was going to resolve his problem for him. And I came home and said, hey, Gabriel, I saw, our friend Joe at the party. And I told him what you told me. And he said, you should do this to heal whatever it's going through. And I thought he'd be like, wow, Mom, thanks. Wow, that's so great. You're so awesome. Thank you so much. And he was really angry at me and said, you violated my privacy. You betrayed my confidence. And I'm really angry at you. And I am never going to share anything personal with you ever again.
Yeah.
And my first reaction was, oh my God, you're so dramatic. We're like, really? But then immediately I went into 5 secrets and said, Gabriel, you're 100% right. I absolutely violated your privacy. I violated your confidentiality. You just told me that, and you told me you're so upset you're never going to talk to me again. And, I imagine that you're feeling betrayed and mistrustful and really angry at me, obviously. And I feel so embarrassed, and I feel so like ashamed that I was treating you like a child instead of like the young man that you are. And,
yeah. How neat.
And I told him that I loved him and asked him to tell me more about what the experience was like for him. And we talked about it for a little bit. And then finally he said, okay, it's, I understand what you did and it's okay. I forgive you. And we hugged each other. And then the funny thing is at the end, he said, that was a really great 5 secrets response, Mom.
Yeah. That's cool.
So he gets it too.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced that, Elizabeth? Where you've been on the receiving end of a 5 secrets and you know what your mom's doing?
Oh, definitely.
What's that like?
When I was a senior in high school, I gave a senior voice recital. And as I was planning the repertoire, Mom, just having my best interest in mind, wanted to give me some suggestions about songs to sing. And she's not a singer. And so at a certain point, I kind of said, Mom, I appreciate your advice, but I already have the plan. And if I'm remembering this correctly, Mom, then you gave a very nice 5 secrets response, kind of offering an apology.
Only after I had done a ton of helping, persuading, and advising to see if you wanted to sing the song from the musical Working. But, to your point, Rhonda, the methods are helpful even when we know what's going on. I mean, I know when Elizabeth is using the 5 secrets with me, and I love it.
Sure. Knowing
that she's using the model doesn't diminish any genuine, sincere respect or affirmation.
Yeah, especially if you're using I feel statements and you're not using it in a gimmicky way. Mm-hmm. It has to come from the heart.
That's right.
But I appreciate it too, particularly when people use stroking. And even if they're just trying to flatter me with false praise, I don't care. I just love it.
Yeah. I think it wouldn't be your model if it wasn't sincere and genuine.
Yeah.
It's got to be sincere and genuine to really be successful and transform our interactions.
For the most part, that's true. There are situations where I think phoniness and insincerity are highly recommended.
I'd love to know more about that, David.
Well, for one thing, I can give you 2 examples. I don't want to get too deep into it because I want to focus on you folks rather than David. But if you're dealing with someone who's very narcissistic and self-centered, and then you can just kind of interact with them with stroking without really taking them that seriously, because you've kind of given up on the idea of having a really deep relationship with them, and you can treat them with respect and with stroking, but the goal is to kind of manipulate them, to be honest, so you don't have to deal with them. That would be one. And then another thing that I taught my daughter was not just the 5 secrets in high school, but I taught her how to manipulate boys and or girls, whatever one's preference is. But there's a lot of game playing that goes on in dating and in high school and friendships, and just the thing of not, when I taught her how to flirt with guys and how to make guys chase her, then a lot of guys started chasing her, but then she'd interact with the guy who would be saying, oh, I just want to be friends or something, a guy who's kind of like always breaking girls' hearts. And then I just taught her when they say that, just say, oh, I'm just so glad to hear you say that, because I've been wanting to date other guys too, and so we can just be friends, I'll even try to fix you up with some really cool girls and stuff. And then when she said that, it just blew their minds, and they became like lapdogs. They started chasing her because she didn't take the bait, so to speak. And that was a really interesting experience, and she and I still laugh about it, because she went from thinking she was unpopular, like she thought popularity was like something you're born with, like a tattoo, a P on your forehead, and you can tell the popular from the unpopular. And I said, no, it's just a matter of skills that I can teach you. And she said, oh, Dad, you're such an ass. You don't know what you're talking about. And then my wife said, no, he is an ass, but this is one area where he really knows what he's talking about. You should take him up on it. And so she did. And we really had the most fun time with that. But when I was in high school, no one ever taught me any of this stuff. I was just one of the unpopular, people. And there's just so many things, and that I think you get a tremendous advantage when you learn these skills. And it's not just for dating; it's for friendships. Using the 5 secrets, it just empowers you.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, one of the things that your mom told me about, maybe this is a story that we could end on because I think we're getting close to the end. But she said that when you started college, you've used the 5 secrets a lot.
Definitely.
Tell us how you're doing that.
Sure. Well, I think when everyone arrives at college for their first year, there's just general feelings of anxiety about making friends and fitting in, finding your group. And I felt that just based on learning the 5 secrets and some of these tools with Mom, I felt really confident in my ability to use inquiry and assertiveness and empathy to interact with peers and professors who I'd never met before. And I also realized that I was most drawn to the people who used the 5 secrets also, whether they did that knowingly or, just they were good at using inquiry and things like that. So that definitely made me feel liberated and confident to go to events on my own, to introduce myself to people and feel comfortable making conversation and making friends that way.
Nice.
It's neat. Yeah. It's so empowering, so powerful.
Yes, definitely.
You can relate to almost anybody.
Uh-huh.
If you're thinking 5 secrets, and if you use them, absolutely, it just opens doors everywhere in the world because everyone wants to be listened to and to be have someone express an interest in them and get them talking about themselves and find truth in what they're saying. That's so neat. You two are just a breath of fresh air, I'll tell you.
David, one thing I sometimes think about TEAM is, I kind of get choked up thinking about it, but what would the world be like if we all focused on, improving our ability to use these ways of communicating? What if we all just focus solely on what we bring to our relationships without expecting others to change? And the other thing I've taken from TEAM, and it seems so important for the world, is what if our relationships and the way we talk to each other was more important than being right?
Yeah, right. Right. Well, let me ask you a question. Since we got an email on this topic from somebody, and I thought maybe we could have him on the podcast, but he just emailed back that he thought he didn't know enough. But he was really raising that question of, in the United States right now, things are really split into warring camps. And how if on an individual basis, one was wanting to talk to people on the other side of the political divide, whether you're on the left side or the right side. It seems like everyone's at war with each other. How could you change that dynamic? Just say in a 1-to-1 with somebody, how would you use the 5 secrets to try to bring about some connection? Because some woman wrote me a real angry email, and she said, we know that the election was stolen, and then she was like cursing at me, and I don't know, something I had said about positive distortions or something rubbed her the wrong way, and I found myself not even being motivated much to respond. But how would you use the 5 secrets?
I'm distracted because I'm still thinking about the email saying that we had to know something to come on the podcast.
Oh, yes. He said I have to do more studies first. And I said, yes, when I was young, I used to think I was going to learn something from my studies, too. So I kind of teased him a little bit. But
well, I'm glad I didn't get that message, because we certainly wouldn't be here if I thought I had to know very much.
Exactly. Like, we don't know much, but nobody knows that, so they think we know something.
I was just thinking, why would we turn down a chance to talk to a luminary in psychotherapy and a world famous psychiatrist, and for Elizabeth to get to meet Rhonda.
I like you very much.
I'm over here excited because I'm in the Zoom room with my 3 favorite mental health professionals.
but how would you go about, teach us a little, and then we'll have to leave. But if you're working with some zealot, who's ranting and raving about their political view.
Well, we live in Ohio. We don't live in Northern California. So we actually do have some experience with this.
Oh, cool.
Unfortunately. Yeah. But I wouldn't be able to advise you on that. But just speaking for myself, I guess I think I have sole custody of my own words, and I can use your framework to connect with someone who's a human being who I don't necessarily agree with by trying to set aside my own beliefs and opinions and use some empathy to get more information and try to understand how on earth they came to hold the views they do.
See the world through their eyes and show respect.
Yeah,
which is a Buddhist concept. It's embedded in most religions as well, I suspect.
And the team concept of trying to set aside our own opinions and walk a mile in the other person's shoes. And with political conversations, it's really hard to dig deep and find some truth in what the other person is saying. But
then you have to be motivated to also. And a lot of the motivation that's going around these days is getting revenge, getting back at, as you say, truth, putting someone down, proving them wrong, making them admit, Anyway, I'm on a tangent, so let's wrap it up. But Rhonda, I'm just so grateful to you for bringing these two beautiful people on. You said, they're going to be great, and I didn't believe you, and boy, were you right. And the success of our podcast comes from the warmth and the energy, and you both have just been mind-blowing from that perspective.
I just want to say thank you, David, for your work. If I live long enough to be a grandma, I'm going to teach my kids, my grandkids, the 5 secrets. And I'm just grateful that in our culture, there's an opportunity to talk about, how to choose words carefully and with humility. And we have you to thank for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much. You're both just beautiful, fantastic human beings. I sometimes say things over the top and embarrass people, so I'll just say you're definitely somewhat above average.
But besides being individually wonderful, it's wonderful to see your relationship. It's so heartwarming.
Yes, it is. It's just inspiring as all get out.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for your work and for sharing TEAM. It's changed our lives.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.